high rate with you. So
Yes.
I'll just ask you to be mindful, if you can, of just slowing down.
Yes.
Okay. So go ahead. Your question again was about that last hospitalization?
Yeah. In February 2024, was she hospitalized again?
Yes, she was.
Okay. Tell us about that.
She had been taken to an emergency room by police. They had ordered that she be admitted, evaluated in the emergency room. So when she got to the emergency room, police told the professionals there that she had called and asked to be arrested for murder and conspiracy. There was no evidence for arrest for that. She was agitated in the emergency room. She was engaging in threatening behavior, bizarre behavior, screaming. She threatened self-harm. She was evaluated and stated to be hallucinating. She had delusional beliefs, talking about the murder of El Chapo, and she was hearing voices of mafia individuals talking. And she was recommended for hospitalization, noted to have acute decompensation of chronic psychotic disorder. They evaluated her and they set for a transfer to an outside hospital. There were no beds at Metro.
All right. Let me take you to the date of the incident.
Yes.
June 6th of 2024, while Ms. Ellis was in jail, do you know if she was evaluated by a psychiatrist? And I'm referring to the top of page 7 of 14.
Yes. So she was jailed in the Cuyahoga County Jail shortly after the offense, and that was on June 6th. She saw the psychiatrist who works in the jail. His name is Dr. Baskin, and he evaluated her. He noted that she was limited in her willingness to engage with him. She spoke to him in a curt manner. He described her as being bizarre in many of her answers, disjointed and paranoid. And he, on that day, he diagnosed her with schizoaffective disorder, and he prescribed her Haldol, an antipsychotic medication, and he prescribed Cogentin for side effects, but she refused to take the medication. She said it was unnecessary and did not take it.
So let me stop you there. I misspoke. That's not the date of the incident. That's 3 days after the incident.
Correct.
Is that when she met Dr. Baskin in the
That's
county jail?
correct.
Okay. Ms. Ellis also was seen by a Ms. Stevenson, a social worker. Can you tell us the observations that were part of your evaluation?
Yes. So Ms. Stevenson, she's a social worker who works in the Cuyahoga County Jail. She noted that Ms. Ellis was seen sitting on the floor in her jail cell with no clothes on whatsoever. She was fixated on an investigation. She was eating her food with her hands instead of the silverware. She was making illogical statements, talking about dinosaurs, things that made no sense.
All right, let's get a break. That's a portion of the defense expert, the first witness that the defense put on the stand. They have another one on the stand this morning. Let's get a break. We'll have more when we return. Stay with us.
My two best friends were just murdered.
Join me for a Court TV true crime series where we take you from the crime scene
to the courtroom. Donna Adelson hates every piece of grass that Dave Martell ever walked on.
It's something that'll haunt all of us forever.
It always seemed like he was covering or deceiving.
This was a whole different level.
Victim to Verdict with Ted Rowlands. New episodes Saturday night, Eastern and Pacific.
only on Court TV.
I moved. And she stabbed him in the side of his face. And then she stabbed me.
Take a minute and then ask a question.
Margot Wood testifying about losing her little boy to Bionca Ellis, who's on trial for murder. Everybody agrees, even the defense, that she's the reason the boy is dead. Why? Because she stabbed him in the parking lot of a grocery store. There are court restrictions in this case. They're back at it live in Ohio. We can't show anything until tomorrow. That's by court order. Right now, the defense has put on their second expert witness. They expect to finish their case today. We'll have a rebuttal expert, I'm sure, from the state, and then closing arguments on Tuesday. We have been told that we can air those closing arguments in the verdict live, so that will be on tap for Tuesday. Right now, we're going back and listening to this unaired testimony from yesterday, and this is a big part of the case. This is the defense. The defense is she was mentally insane, legally insane at the time of the murders, and their first witness is Dr. Megan Testa. We'll pick it up where we left off before the break.
I'm going to take you back to the questions that we were discussing before we got into your report. And there's some history of non-compliance with her medication. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And is that something that's typical with this population? And when I say this population, I'm talking about people who suffer from psychosis, schizophrenia, and other disorders?
Yes, it's typical. It's estimated that about 50% of people with schizophrenia are non-compliant with medications at some point in time. So it's very typical.
Okay. And can you speak to the voluntariness of it, or the voluntariness of it? Is that something that, why is it a part of that population? Why is it so high, 50%?
There are a lot of reasons for medication non-compliance. So in the population of individuals with schizophrenia, one symptom of schizophrenia is a lack of insight. So as we were talking about earlier, it feels real to the person with schizophrenia. What they are thinking feels real. What they're experiencing feels real. If you or I were told to take a medication and we did not think we had the disorder that we were being told to take the medication for, we would probably not take it. So for a lot of individuals with schizophrenia, that's how it feels. They think what they're going through is real. They're not going to take a medication for a disorder that they don't believe they have. And so poor insight, it's very common in psychosis and in schizophrenia, and that can lead to medication noncompliance. There are other reasons too, difficulty accessing care in the community, running out, missing your appointment, and then if you get off your meds a little bit, you can backslide very quickly, and then you're in a state where you don't want to take your meds. So that's why it happens, and it's very common.
Okay. Be fair to say that based on your review of the records and your experience with her, that she generally improved when she would take medication?
There's very clear evidence of that.
Okay. And was there some point in time that you had, or someone had discussion about the number of children that she had?
Yes, she was expressing, the first time that I interviewed her at North Coast, she expressed that she had 23 children. She stated that she had these 23 children when she was in the kindergarten.
Okay. When she was in kindergarten?
Yes, sir.
And was that part of her schizoaffective thinking or schizophrenic thinking?
Yes, that was part of her thought disorder. When I met her in September or late August for the September report, she did not believe it was part of her thought disorder. She believed it was true. She believed this interfered with her schooling. She was crying at night at North Coast wanting to find these children that she believed were taken from her. so she believed that was true. When I saw her in January on medications, she said that that was part of her schizoaffective thinking was the word that she used, but she had gained insight on medications that that was not true.
Okay. She also described delusions involving NASA, Queen Elizabeth, the FBI. Can you tell us about those?
Yes, when I met with her in August, she expressed a number of very bizarre ideas. She talked about the FBI, conspiracies. She talked about espionage. She talked about Jesus Christ in the Bible, Matthew from the Bible, and him in taxes, related with taxes. She talked about people walking on water. She spoke of noise pollution, having these 23 children. And she also did speak about Queen Elizabeth and...
Okay. And those thoughts are consistent with psychotic illness rather than rational thinking. Is that fair to say?
That's correct.
Let's talk a little bit about her course of treatment at North Coast Behavioral. When Ms. Ellis was first admitted at North Coast in August of 2024, I saw the term she was floridly psychotic. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Can you tell the jurors what that means?
The word floridly psychotic or also grossly psychotic is a term that means that they are displaying symptoms of severe psychosis.
Okay. Was she disorganized in thought and speech?
She was very disorganized. Her thoughts were one to the next, FBI, Queen Elizabeth. None of it was linking together or linking with reality.
Okay. And initially, did she refuse or did she comply with taking medication?
She refused medications. So she refused medications in the jail. That continued until she got to North Coast. She refused medications at North Coast. She told me she would not take any medications prescribed to her by her treating psychiatrist. The reason was she said she didn't need it. She also had some delusions about the pharmaceutical industry, and she believed that her disorder could be treated with bananas, riboflavin, and apples.
Okay. And a forced medication order was eventually obtained in September 2024, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and what is that? What happens with that?
A forced medication order can be issued by courts. So it can be issued by a probate court or a criminal court. In this case, when I saw Miss Ellis, my opinion was that she was ill and that she required medications. It would be in her best interest to take medications, that medications would be the least restrictive manner to relieve her suffering and alleviate her symptoms, and that it was the only way to restore her competence to stand trial would be through medications. That was my opinion at the time. Her treating psychiatrist, Dr. Vanderkar, had opined the same, that she lacked the capacity to really understand the benefit of medications, that medications would help her, and that it was the only way to restore her competency. So based on an opinion of two different doctors, two independent doctors, the court can issue an order to say that that patient must take medications whether they choose to or not, because it is in their best interest and they deserve a chance at that treatment. So that was issued in this case, a forced medication order to provide Ms. Ellis with treatment.
All right, Dr. Megan Testa. Testifying on behalf of the defense, Joe Tamburino is with us. He's a former prosecutor, currently a criminal defense attorney in St. Paul, Minnesota, Twin Cities. Joe, this is a very good witness. She's compelling, intelligent, and is telling us a story of mental illness in terms of the defendant's behavior and some of the things she's done and that this doctor witnessed. How does the state then combat this? If you have a juror or two who are listening to this testimony and thinking, oh my gosh, this lady is out there, Queen Elizabeth, NASA, taxes, and a bowl of ants. How does the state then combat it to focus on the law and not the, obviously, mental illness of this defendant?
Sure. I mean, what they're going to do is
point out specific facts. When this doctor, who I agree, she's doing a very good job for the defense, but when she's saying things about schizophrenic, the number one thing that the prosecutor could raise is just because you're a schizophrenic does not mean you are legally insane. That is, everyone agrees with that. That's number one. Number two, what are the acts that Ms. Ellis did which show that she was thinking about what she was doing? Well, when she was picking out a knife that she was going to steal, when she deliberately went to pick this victim who was very, very vulnerable, when supposedly after that she tried to hide the knife, when she was encountered by the gentleman who testified already in the trial, she shrugged her shoulders and said, "So what that I stabbed him," to point out these specific things. Next,
isn't that
the
last
prosecutor's
point
going to use
isn't the last point the witness who says she just shrugged her shoulders? Doesn't that help the defendant on some level? If she was sitting there going, "Oh, I can't believe I did this. I'm somewhere sorry," then you're one. I mean, she seemed to be in character in terms of over the hump of Nutville by saying, "Oh, sorry," to a dead kid.
No, the way I would attack it is the following. When she was confronted by that gentleman who said, "Do you know you just stabbed the kid?" Think about what she did not say. She did not say, "Oh, I just got rid of a demon. I executed somebody who's evil. I just had to kill a wild dog," like she was in some type of hallucination. She was leaving the scene at the time that this was happening. All of that can be used to show her state of mind, that she knew what she was doing. In many of these mental illness cases, these insanity cases, the ones that have been successful, and there's very few, there's evidence that a person didn't even know they were harming a fellow human being. They thought they were killing a demon, something that was evil, or some type of wild animal. They had no idea of the nature of their acts. In this one, I think it works against the defense when she said, "So what, I stabbed a kid."
Great point. All right, let's get a break. And when we come back, more of the unaired testimony in the murder trial against Bionca Ellis. Stay with us.
saw a woman stabbing a mother and child. I saw the knife covered in blood. I saw violent motions towards a mother and her child.
Happening now, the final defense witness is on the stand, a medical expert. Closing argument set for Tuesday in this case. The courthouse is closed on Monday for Columbus Day. Today, we're airing unaired testimony because of the judge's order in this case. We can't air live testimony. So what's happening today will air once they are done for the day. Right now, we're listening to this doctor, Dr. Megan Testa, and she's telling the jury what she observed by analyzing this defendant and basically saying she was schizophrenic. It's going to be up to the jury to decide to what level was she mentally impaired at the time of the murder. Let's go back in and listen to more from Dr. Testa.
And after that order, she began taking Haldol, and is it clozapine or clozapine?
Clozapine.
Okay.
Is
that correct?
She did. Dr. Vanderkar initially prescribed Haldol. That's an antipsychotic medication. She tried to bring that medication to a therapeutic dose, but Miss Ellis had some side effects, some anxiety, and some motor effects. She tried to treat that side effect with the medication Ativan, but she didn't respond well to Haldol. At that point, she offered Miss Ellis the medication clozapine. The medication clozapine is reserved for treatment-resistant schizophrenia or treatment-resistant psychosis. So as a psychiatrist, I can only prescribe clozapine to people whose illness is what we call treatment-resistant. So if they have failed to fully respond to other medications, at least 2, then I can try them on this medication clozapine. So because her illness was deemed to be treatment-resistant, Dr. Vanderkar started clozapine for her.
Okay. And once the clozapine was introduced, was there gradual and sustained improvement observed?
Yes, there was. So her course with clozapine, the reason why it's reserved is because there are a lot of side effects to monitor for. And Miss Ellis has some physical health issues as well. So balancing the medication, the side effects, monitoring her other health conditions, that made the process of treating her complicated for Dr. Vanderkar. So there were some ups and some downs where she would do better and then they'd have to hold off on raising the dose, or they'd even have to lower the dose. At a point they had to stop the medications and obtain a consult from a cardiologist to ensure it was safe for Miss Ellis's heart to continue to take that medication. So it was a gradual course with some ups and downs, but what was clear in the North Coast chart was that she continuously improved on clozapine to the point where her thoughts became organized, her thoughts became reality-based, she stopped hallucinating, and she was able to engage in competency restoration groups and stabilize on that medication.
Would it be fair to say her competency was restored through consistent antipsychotic medication over time?
Yes.
Okay. Your January 2025 evaluation, was Ms. Ellis alert and oriented?
She was.
Okay. Again, you attribute that to the medication?
Yes.
Okay. She was able to identify her charges and understood that they were very serious, even mentioning the death penalty. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Was she able to identify various plea options, including not guilty by reason of insanity?
Yes.
Okay. Does she understand the courtroom roles of each person involved?
She did.
Judge, prosecutor, defense lawyer?
Yes.
Okay. And before, she never had the ability to do that until she started taking the medication. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Is it true that she still carries an active diagnosis of schizophrenia?
Yes, schizophrenia is a brain disorder. So once you have it, it's a lifelong brain disorder. It does not go away. It's chronic illness.
Without medication, would her symptoms likely return?
Absolutely. I mean, we know it for most people, that's true. But we know it as a fact for Miss Ellis because we have her records. It's very clear from her records when she stops medication or when she runs out, her symptoms return.
Okay. Even with medication, individuals with schizophrenia can experience intermittent relapses. Is that correct?
Yes, that's true. That's why, as psychiatrist, I see my patients with schizophrenia at least once a month. If once they were on meds, their symptoms will be gone forever, we would have no need for follow-up. You know, we would just put them on those medications, and that would be that. But it's not how it is. That's why we need ongoing visits. We might need to titrate medications or change them.
Okay. In your February 2025 report, did you opine and make certain findings?
Yes.
And can you tell the jurors what those are?
Yes. So my first role, as we talked about, was competency evaluation. My second role was, again, competency evaluation. So when I saw her on January 15th, I was evaluating, does she have a present mental condition? Can she understand the proceedings she faced? And can she assist in her defense? I did opine with reasonable medical certainty that she had schizophrenia. That was my diagnosis of her. That I based upon her long, well-established history of delusions. So those are the fixed false beliefs, as well as her disorganized thinking and her auditory hallucinations. So that established a diagnosis of schizophrenia. So my first opinion was that she did have a present mental condition. My second opinion was that she, despite her mental condition, was able to understand the nature and the objectives of the proceedings she faced. And that was because she was on the antipsychotic medications. Okay. And then my third opinion was the same, that she could, in fact, assist her defense because she was stabilized on the medication.
All right, let's go to break. More from this doctor. When we return, a reminder in real time, there is another defense witness on the stand, the final witness for the defense before the state presents a rebuttal case, and then closing arguments on Tuesday. Monday, court is dark for Columbus Day. Stay with us.
I'm Vinny Politan. Welcome to Closing Arguments.
What's happening here?
It's unreal. Let me show you exactly what happened.
Closing Arguments with Vinny Politan, tonight at 8/7 Central, only on Court TV.
A wife accused of murdering her prominent attorney husband, and the defense involves blaming her own sons?
Victim to Verdict with Ted Rowlands. New episode Saturday night, 8 Eastern and Pacific.
Only on Court TV.
evaluation.
All right. And in your report, again, you note she still has schizophrenia, has a present mental condition right now. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. And is it your contention that that condition existed at the time of your evaluation and likely existed long before her arrest?
Yes, it existed since 2015 per the records.
Okay. All right. In her prior psychotic hospitalizations or psychiatric hospitalizations and delusional thinking predates the charged offense. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And those records that you have reviewed reflect a pattern of losing touch with reality when she's off of her medication. Is that correct?
Yes, that's very clear in the records.
Okay. Now, let's be clear. Your evaluation focused on competency to stand trial. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay. Not Ms. Ellis's mental state at the time of the alleged offense. Is that correct?
I did not evaluate sanity. That was not my role.
Okay. So you were not asked to give the opinion of whether or not she knew the wrongfulness or not of her conduct in this case. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So your report does not address her sanity at the time of the offense.
It does not. I wasn't assigned to do that, and so I did not even ask the questions one would ask to perform a sanity evaluation.
Okay. But you are able to say that her same mental illness would have been present at the time of the offense. Is that
yes, correct? She had schizophrenia. She was ill at the time, but I don't have an opinion on legal sanity because I did not do that evaluation.
Okay. Even though you didn't do the evaluation, have you ever done an evaluation for sanity?
Yes.
And can you explain to the jurors what goes into doing that kind of evaluation as opposed to something for competency?
Sure. Competency is, when I do a competency evaluation, what I do is I meet with the person that I am assigned to evaluate, and it's an evaluation of them at the moment that I'm seeing them. What is their mental state at that moment? And then do they have what's called adjudicative capacity? So can they understand their charges, how the courtroom works, and can they assist their lawyer at that moment in time? That's what I was assigned to do, and that's what I did twice. A sanity evaluation is very different. What a person who is doing a sanity evaluation will do is they will go back. Once a person is competent, they will sit with them. They will gather from them their account of the days preceding the offense, their account of their mental condition around the time of the offense. They'll get their account of the offense itself, and then they'll review extensive records from collateral sources, hospital records, maybe emergency room records, police records, anything from the time of the crime. The role of someone who's evaluating sanity is to look at the time of the crime and make some determinations about how the person was then, why they did what they did, and whether their illness interfered with their ability to know it was wrong. That's a sanity evaluation. That I did not do.
Okay. Is mental illness limited to a particular group?
No, it is not.
Okay. Doesn't matter how much money you have, what color you are, what your age is.
No, we all have brains. It's a brain disorder, so it doesn't discriminate.
Okay. When someone, whether they're on medication or not, you can have a psychotic episode. Is that fair to say?
That's correct.
Okay. And we talk about psychotic episodes. What are we talking about?
To talk about a psychotic episode, it's not something that's in the diagnostic manual. But how we use that term is the person is having active symptoms. So I could have a patient who has psychosis, but they're on their meds and they are not having a psychotic episode at that time. The psychotic episode would be when the symptoms are present and those symptoms are active.
She's a good witness, boy. She knows her stuff. You can tell she has many patients with schizophrenia schizophrenia. Joe Tamburino watching along with us, prosecutor, former prosecutor, now he's a defense attorney up in Minneapolis, St. Paul. One would have to think if this doctor had Bionca Ellis as a patient, that this wouldn't have happened. But that is assuming that the schizophrenia is the reason that it happened. What's your take on, first of all, how well this doctor is doing, and then also whether the mental illness is a component of this murder?
Well, I think the doctor is doing very well. However, there's one big gap in what she's saying. She didn't do a sanity evaluation. I mean, that's why we're here. This is an insanity defense. The defense has raised the affirmative defense saying, look, my client did it, but she didn't know the nature of her acts at the time because she was legally insane. And we just heard this expert, though she's an excellent expert, there's no doubt about it, say that she didn't do a sanity evaluation. That's going to be a problem, and the prosecutor is going to jump on that.
Well, we do know that, I mean, she's the setup. Today, the second expert who, I assume, did the sanity evaluation is on the stand as we speak. Can't air that till they're done for the day. But you're right. I mean, she was very upfront with that. That was in her purview, and that's why we're here, and that's what jurors need. So the rest of it is the setup, and that is the key portion. Bottom line, for us, what's your take before we go to break? Is she going? Is this going to be guilty? Because a lot of people watching this might be nervous. Oh, she's going to get away with it.
Well, I think it will be a guilty verdict. I don't think the insanity defense is going to work here. And what you mentioned before, Ted, is very important. When you said, if this doctor would have been Ms. Ellis's doctor, would this have happened? And, you know, that's hard to answer, but we could think about this, which is, in Ohio, they could have civilly committed Ms. Ellis before and forced her to take
committed,
medication.
yeah. Got to
That
go.
didn't happen.
Back after this. Thanks, Joe. Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Ted Rowlands, in for Julie Grant on this Friday morning. Good to have you along with us as we round out a very busy week here at Court TV. This hour, we're in Ohio, the toddler stab murder trial for Bionca Ellis. She's accused of stabbing 3-year-old Julian Wood to death in the parking lot of a grocery store last year. Julian's mother, Margot, was stabbed as well in the shoulder. She survived. She testified. Court restrictions tell us that we can't show testimony until the end of the day, so today we're getting you caught up on what happened yesterday. And what happened yesterday was that the defense began its case in chief. They have a couple witnesses. The first witness that took the stand was Dr. Megan Testa, and she evaluated the defendant and looked at her past history and saw her after the incident happened, and she's testifying on behalf of the defendant and the defense. Well, we've heard the direct. Now let's go back in and pick up more of her testimony.
Can a person follow simple instructions?
Yes, a person with active psychosis can indeed follow a simple instruction, absolutely.
For example, get down on the ground, drop whatever you have in your hand. Is that something, hypothetically, that a person would still be able to follow that instruction even if it's active?
Yes, a person in psychosis could follow an instruction such as that.
Okay. And can they cooperate and be compliant even while their illness is active?
Yes.
Okay. Does the brain completely shut down, or do you still have some intelligence to communicate with other individuals?
You can communicate with other individuals with schizophrenia and with an active psychosis.
And information that you've learned over the course of time, can you still retain that information and articulate that information during communication with anyone?
Yes.
Okay. I hope that was a good question. I believe that you also opined at the time in your September 2024 report, you had some opinions then, is that correct?
Yes.
And by the way, are each of your opinions in the January report and February report with a medical degree of scientific certainty?
Yes, all opinions that I'm offering today are to a reasonable degree of medical certainty.
Okay. Tell us about your January 2024 opinion.
Are you asking me about the January opinion?
I'm sorry, January 2024.
Or the September?
September 2024. Yeah, my dates.
Yes, sir. September 2024, that was when I initially saw Miss Ellis. My opinion at that time, she was presenting at that time with florid psychosis. Her thoughts were all over the place. When I did her competency evaluation, she was making a number of bizarre statements. I'm going to reference my report.
Okay.
1 second. So, on page 11 of that report, she was able to tell me that she was facing charges, but she was not able to name them. She was not able to say why she was arrested. What she was saying was really neither here nor there. She did know that her charges were serious, but was very blasé about it. She wasn't really, she didn't seem affected by it. She had a very, very unusual affect, which is her emotional expression. So she was smiling and smirking and laughing for no reason, with no, type of event happening that should elicit that type of a response. That's common in schizophrenia as well. And then she talked about Jim Crow, Albert Einstein, relativity, NASA, and she was not able to give any information relevant to court. She also kind of was disengaged, so she was not able to really engage with me like the way that I would expect. She didn't really have much eye contact. She lowered her forearms to the table at one point and laid her head down on her forearms. Slow down? Just a little fast. Yes. She would derail in conversation. I tried to screen her long-term memory by asking her past presidents. She started talking about LeBron James and Jesus Christ. She talked to me about medications and that those would not be anything she would take. Talked about bananas being needed for her mental illness, riboflavin. I opined that she had an unspecified schizophrenia spectrum disorder at that time. I could see that she was disorganized and she was hallucinating. But what I couldn't tell was if there was a mood component to her illness or not at that time. So I gave her a diagnosis of unspecified schizophrenia spectrum disorder at that time. So I opined that that was a present mental condition. I opined that she could not assist in her defense due to that mental condition. I also opined that there would be no way to restore her competency without medications. I opined that she lacked the capacity to make those decisions about medications in her best interest, and that a forced medication order would be necessary.
Over what period of time while she was at North Coast did you have the opportunity to observe her behavior?
I observed her on the two occasions that I evaluated her. I reviewed her full medical chart with
Got it.
24/7 nursing observations and all the notes from all the medical professionals.
Okay. And the first date that you saw her was when?
August 28th,
Okay.
2024.
Is it your opinion that her mental illness or schizophrenia was active at that time?
Yes.
Did you have the occasion to watch any video of Miss Ellis at her arraignment for her legal proceedings?
Yes, I saw that.
And the observations that you made when you first met her in person and what you saw in those videos, is that consistent with your observations at North Coast?
Yes, her presentation in the arraignments is similar to her presentation at North Coast with the disengaging, leaning down, the bizarre affect. That is all consistent.
Would you recognize that video if I showed it to you?
Yes.
And can I ask you some questions about that video?
Yes.
Identify what's been marked as Exhibit E for the record.
Thank you.
Is there audio on this one? We're going to also play Defense Exhibit C. I believe that one has audio. And if it doesn't, we'll go to a small mini laptop.
You go to the right on the bottom. It was muted at the time, so now it'll.
April 10/21/2020 as a proximate result of the offender committing or attempting to commit an offense of violence that is a felony of the first or second degree, to which felonious assault, part of House Code Section 2903.11A1, and/or endangering children, in violation of Hard Bus Code Section 2919.22B2. Count 4 alleges that on or about June 3rd, 2024, the defendant did knowingly cause serious physical harm to J.W. on date of birth 10/29/2020. Count 5 alleges that on or about June 3rd, 2024,
There's also a clip she responds to that. Dr. Testa, to the ordinary person, she looks like she's laughing.
Correct.
While the judge is identifying the most serious of charges. Is there an explanation for that?
Well, as a psychiatrist looking at that behavior does not fit the setting. That does not fit the occasion. It's what we would call an incongruent affect or an incongruent emotional expression. The behavior is just not appropriate for the setting. She also looks to the side at points or looks up. That could indicate that she's perceiving something that none of us can perceive, that is in fact funny or is in fact amusing, but we cannot perceive that. That's another explanation for that behavior. What I can say is that is the behavior that we observed at North Coast while she was off medications. When she got onto medications, that behavior stopped.
Does she have the ability to control her actions if her illness is active?
One can control their actions.
How?
It's a broad question, but people with schizophrenia, they don't lose the ability to do like simple things. So it would really depend. It's a very broad question, but just having schizophrenia doesn't eliminate all your ability to control your actions.
Okay. Could she have stopped what she was doing there if her illness is active?
That symptom is not controllable. So if that indeed is a symptom of schizophrenia, that affective inappropriateness, that is not controllable.
All right. I'm going to take one moment to confer with Mr. Johnson.
All right, that was the end of direct examination of this expert on the stand, the first of two for the defense. Before we hit a break, let's bring in law enforcement expert Sonny Slaughter. Sonny, what's your overall take on this case? I mean, we all know it's just horrific. What about the defense, what we've seen so far from the defense? Your thoughts?
Good morning, Ted. Great to be with you. I always love how you put these things together, particularly these complicated, nuanced cases. And I think in this particular case, Bionca, we know she does have not only disease, but diagnosis. However, her being a schizophrenic person or a person that has this disease or diagnosis does not preclude her from understanding her actions at the time that she committed those actions. Law enforcement has done a great job at putting together her footsteps, analyzing the videos that we have been seeing, and she clearly was confident in that moment. And while she may have been triggered because she didn't get what she wanted at the police station earlier, which I think was the basis for all of this to begin, she didn't get what she wanted. But I do believe that she acted very intentionally. I think this poor baby and his mother were the victims of her having a moment where she felt like she could control the situation, even control her emotions, because she understood what she did.
As a member of law enforcement, the interaction with the mentally ill is a daily occurrence in the streets of our cities or across the country. Is there a proper, or does it, in your opinion, should things change to enable first responders who see someone who is clearly in crisis, get them help to the point of civil commitment? Joe Tamburino brought it up last hour, at the end of last hour. Had this defendant been a patient of this doctor, who seemed very, Megan Testa, very accomplished, then she could have been possibly civilly committed, and then there would be a little boy that is enjoying life had that happened. What's your take from a law enforcement standpoint? We, as a country, sort of just let, well, the cops can handle it. How taxing is it, and what do you think is a potential solution to the obvious problem?
That's a great question. I agree with Joe in his last segment. And what I want to tell you is I have been doing work with one of the organizations, the Epilepsy Foundation, around people that have illnesses that are mental health illnesses or medical illnesses, and doing the training. I think if law enforcement had the proper training and had the expertise around more than just one issue, including mental health, including schizophrenia, where they could potentially Baker's Act someone, and you know, that is putting someone in, you know, in a facility for an extended period of time, you know, usually 72 hours, to get them observed, evaluated, and to make the case. I think we would have more, we would see less of these incidents. They would never completely go away because it's hard to do the cross-training for them to understand. But I do think that we need more resources, because families as individuals are not able to do this. And it begins to get hard for them to keep a person under control. So we do need to pull all the levers of our society to ensure that individuals like Bionca are not in our society and able to do the heinous crime that she committed. I have family members that have mental health issues, and it was a lot of work, but we did keep track of them. And as a young girl, I didn't understand mental health, but I do now, and I understand that we do need to pull every resource, every lever of our society to stop these type of incidents from happening.
Well said. Let's get a break. We'll get the cross-examination of the defense expert, Dr. Megan Testa, when we return.
Are you ready?
Game on.
Let's go! This is huge for women's sports.
Keep on winning, keep winning, come on. Lay it on the line, all in. It is on tonight. 'Cause I'm ready for the win. Electric.
It's on ION. Find on your channel guide or favorite streaming service.
Defense presenting its last witness to the jury before the state presents a rebuttal case. And then after a day off Monday for Columbus Day, they'll have closing arguments on Tuesday. And this hour, we're replaying some of the on-air testimony from yesterday. The judge of this case is preventing the broadcasting of the testimony until court is done for the day. So we're going back and we're looking at the first witness that the defense put forward for this jury, Dr. Megan Testa. We watched the direct examination. Now let's go back into the courtroom where she's on cross.
Ma'am, you have not only worked at North Coast Behavioral, but were you not also part of the court psychiatric clinic here in Cuyahoga County?
I worked here during my fellowship training. So I did do evaluations here from 2010 to 2011.
And at that time, who was the head of your department?
Dr. Phil Resnick.
And you worked under Dr. Phil Resnick, and you studied under Dr. Phil Resnick.
That's correct.
All right. Mr. Mack asked you several questions with regards to competency.
Yes.
And that is the only thing that you were asked to do in this case.
That's correct.
And you did it as kind of an adjunct at North Coast because though you are employed by them, you also see other patients.
Well, my employment at North Coast is part-time.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
So I'm a part-time. I go there about once a week as a part-time employee.
All right. So you're not there full-time.
No, no.
All right. So when you rely on those 20-day stays in order for you to make your determination, you are relying on the other folks that are doing the actual observations.
So I would do my own mental status evaluation and a chart review. I would only be doing the evaluation, not the treatment.
Okay. So if we start with Defense Exhibit I,
yes,
that you've authored and testified to, you indicate here, do you not, that you also reviewed Dr. Hatters-Friedman's information?
Correct, yes.
All right. And can you tell me what you learned from that information?
Yes, like describe, do you want me to describe her opinion?
Yes. And what page were you on?
I'm going to find it right now. I think it is on, it's on page 8.
All right. And with regards to Dr. Hatters-Friedman, where was that evaluation done?
Dr. Hatters-Friedman evaluated Miss Ellis at the Cuyahoga County Court Psychiatric Clinic.
Okay. And what were her interactions with her?
So she interviewed Miss Ellis on July 30th, 2024. She was court appointed and independent.
Okay. And so what were her observations with regards to Miss Ellis?
When she saw Miss Ellis was poorly cooperative throughout the evaluation. She presented as irritable. She said that she thrust forward her psychotic ideas. So that's when you throw them out there.
Okay.
Lack of a better word. She observed that she tried to ask the competency questions to Miss Ellis, and she made the statement, "I'm coherent."
I'm sorry, what did she say?
She said, I'm incoherent.
Incoherent. Okay, go ahead. And those were the words of Miss Ellis.
These are the words that Dr. Hatters-Friedman reported that Miss Ellis said.
Correct. Go ahead.
Yes, to her.
And what else did she say?
She told Dr. Hatters-Friedman that she needed to find an investigator and start an investigation.
All right. And then with regards to Dr. Hatters-Friedman making a determination as to competency at that particular time, was she able to?
She was not.
And why not?
She deferred to provide a diagnosis. So Dr. Hatters-Friedman noted in her report that she had insufficient information to make a diagnosis with a reasonable degree of medical certainty. So she could not opine whether or not she had a mental illness at that time. She didn't have enough information to make that decision.
Okay. And what were her observations of Miss Ellis's behavior at the time?
She noted that per jail records, she had been able to maintain some behavioral control despite refusing medications. She noted that she could not answer some simple questions, which was atypical. That means it's not a usual thing that we would see. She noted that for Miss Ellis to say she was incoherent, that was unusual. And Dr. Hatters-Friedman's words were, she could not determine if Miss Ellis's behavior during the time she saw her in the court clinic was behavioral or related to a mental illness. She could not make a decision.
Okay. So therefore, she was sent then to North Coast.
Yes.
So explain to us, to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, when they first come to North Coast, where are they placed and what kind of observation units are they in?
When Miss Ellis came to North Coast, this is typical of individuals who are coming in for competency evaluation. She is placed on what's called a competency restoration unit. It's a psychiatric unit. It is staffed with the typical types of professionals that you would see on a psychiatric unit, and it also has forensic experts as well. So she was placed on a unit with nursing staff, behavioral health staff, psychiatrists, medical doctors, and forensic evaluators that would monitor her 24/7. They'll document her behavior in the medical chart on a 24/7 basis.
And doctor, does the
All right, let's get a break. We'll get more of this cross-examination of the defense expert when we return. Ohio, in real time, the final medical expert is on the stand for the defense. Prosecution will have a rebuttal, and then they'll have closing arguments on Tuesday after the Columbus Day holiday on Monday. Right now, we're going back and watching yesterday's testimony, the first witness that the defense provided for this jury, trying to convince them that their client, or the defendant, was mentally ill at the time that this happened, and she should be found not guilty by reason of insanity. Dr. Megan Testa is the witness's name. Let's go back in, pick up the cross-examination where we left off.
Doctor, does the patient know that they are being monitored 24/7?
Yes.
And are they in their own isolated rooms, or do they have their own isolated rooms? Excuse me. And is there also a common area where peers meet and there's conversation and stuff of that sort?
Yes, that's exactly how it is. They will have rooms, and then there will be common areas as well.
And do they have access to the outside public?
People for 20-day evaluations would not have those types of privileges. Those come with levels.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Mack asked you a series of questions about all the medical and psychiatric care that she's had in the past.
Yes.
And there were several hospitalizations that you indicated that she was hospitalized for psychiatric treatment for failing to take meds.
That's
Is that
correct.
fair?
That's correct.
All right. Now, I just want to turn your attention to page 6, which all the way down at the bottom of the page is the second paragraph up, talking about the Metro Hospital ED that we've spoken about in this case. Can you tell us why she went there and what were their observations of her?
She went there after falling off a bus, and they addressed her leg pain. They noted that she was cooperative with the treatment of her leg pain. They did not notice anything abnormal about her emotional expression, and they noted that she made eye contact with them.
And Doctor, what ED for the jury?
Emergency department.
And that was at Metro Hospital?
Yes.
All right. And that was on May 26th of 2024?
That's correct.
All right. So because she has this diagnosis, it follows her where she goes, correct?
That's correct.
And so back on May 26th of 2024, it appears that normal affect and good eye contact.
That's what's documented, yes.
All right. Now, there comes a point in time where she's at North Coast.
Yes.
And the doctor, based on his evaluation of her, wants to prescribe medications, right?
Yes.
And she refuses. I believe it's Dr. Baskin who is the prescriber of the medication.
Dr. Baskin was prescribing medication in the jail. Dr. Vanderkar was prescribing medication at North Coast.
Thank you. Then
Yes.
let's go to your report, Defense Exhibit I, page 17.
17, yes.
Okay. And at that point, on June 6th, Dr. Baskin diagnosed her with schizoaffective disorder and prescribed Haldol.
That's correct. He wrote a prescription for it, yes.
All right. She, Miss Ellis, refused to take the medication.
Yes.
Okay. Is that a volitional act, refusing to take medication?
It's a choice, yes.
So it's a choice that someone makes.
Correct.
Now, during the time, Dr. Testa, that you met her the very first time,
Yes.
what was the setting?
North Coast Behavioral Health Care. I met her on the inpatient unit in a conference room.
And are there pleasantries that are exchanged? And do you tell her why you're there?
Always. I would always tell her why I'm there, what my purpose is, what I do and do not do, and that it's non-confidential.
And when you were doing that, what were your observations of Miss Ellis? Was she paying attention to you?
She was making eye contact at that time during the initial part of the interview.
Okay. So during the initial part, when you're kind of laying the ground rules, the foundation, you're going to be asking questions, fair? She's paying attention to you. She's making eye contact.
Yes.
Did you ask any questions during that particular period of time?
I asked her whether she understood what I had told her.
Okay. And did she understand?
Initially, her responses were bizarre. I was not satisfied that she understood. So I went back through the statements again to ensure that she was paying attention, and she indicated that she understood.
Okay. All right. So she had, I believe you told Mr. Mack, very unusual affect.
Affect, yes.
Affect.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, we'll hit a break, but first, Sonny Slaughter, the prosecution here, Sonny, using this witness to sort of set up where they're going, that a different person came in, evaluated, couldn't determine because there's a concern that she was maybe acting or projecting intentionally, hey, I'm nuts, you better get me evaluated, and that is probably a theme for the state's rebuttal, which we expect later today. Would you agree?
I absolutely agree. I think it was really clear when she went to the doctors because she hurt herself in the bus accident and she had no problem there. That is because that was something that she wanted, something that she needed. When she doesn't, when there's something that she's that's when she does. It's over exaggerated, I think. I do believe she does have disease and mental health disease and diagnosis, but I also believe that in some instances she uses that as a way to control other people in the room and to control the situation, which is what I think she did in the murder.
Yeah, it does seem that that's a possibility, and that's what the state's going to grab onto. Because these juries, the jury at the end of the day, they're really tasked to make a difficult decision. You have to be an expert in, mental health as a juror at the end of this trial. And boy, this is one of those cases you wouldn't want to be on as a juror.
But Ted, we all have someone. We all know and have someone in our families that may not have the diagnosis, but they have the disease. They may have the disease and ignore the diagnosis. We all know someone who is struggling with their mental health, which is why I have told elected officials all the way to the Senate, I have spoken to them directly and said, stop using mental health as a caveat when it comes to violence because it becomes an excuse. We have got to understand that our words matter and that these actions, there are plenty of people that have mental health disease and diagnosis who have not committed heinous crimes, which is why we have to do better as a society and we have to do better as leaders, as commentators, and particularly as elected officials, that we do not overlook and forget about what we are seeing in crimes like this. This is heinous. Oh. And whether she had a disease or not, or diagnosis, she needs to never be around anyone else again, and particularly those who are vulnerable. She needs to be incarcerated.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you could argue maybe in a hospital setting or a prison, but you're right. This is someone who's very dangerous and committed the ultimate act. And to your point, we all have people in our lives that suffer from mental illness, and it's heartbreaking. And that's why when you do, I have experience with it as well, and specifically with schizophrenia. It's scary. And no matter who you are, if you're diagnosed with this, you are going to interact with law enforcement because there are events of seeing things that aren't there, et cetera, and it starts this downward spiral. And collectively, we got to figure it out. Otherwise, the little boy is going to be dead like we saw in this case. So, Sonny, thank you. As always, enjoy your weekend. Appreciate your time on the program on this Friday as we look at the victims of this case. Before we go to break, more testimony when we return.
I'm Vinny Politan. Welcome to Closing Arguments.
What's happening here?
It's unreal. Let me show you exactly what happened.
Closing Arguments with Vinny Politan, tonight at 8/7 Central, only on Court TV.
A wife accused of murdering her prominent attorney husband, and the defense involves blaming her own sons?
Victim to verdict with Ted Rowlands. New episode Saturday night.
cross-examination of the defense expert, Dr. Megan Testa.
So when she is giving you these unusual things or saying these unusual things, do you question her about those things? And how they apply or don't apply?
If I will redirect. So if I'm asking her, where she was born, and she starts to talk about Jesus or the FBI, I will redirect. I will ask her again where she was born. Sometimes you can get an individual on track in conversation in that way. Sometimes, if the psychosis is heavy, they will continue to talk about those things. During the competency part, I will ask how that's related to the charges. Sometimes you can pull people back. Sometimes they will continue on the psychotic thought process.
But just because they pull back doesn't mean they don't understand the question you're asking.
That's fair. It could be that they don't understand and they don't want to answer, or it could be that they're unable to.
Unable to, or they choose not to.
It could be either or.
So a person can have psychosis. No one is disputing that someone has schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder. But just because a person has those mental illnesses, that does not equate with not understanding or not appreciating something, correct?
That's correct. It's not a definite.
Now, when you made your diagnostic impressions back in September
Yes.
3rd of 2024, you make some unspecified diagnoses, ma'am, correct?
That's correct.
All right. And so can you tell me those unspecified diagnoses that you make?
I made the psychiatric diagnoses of unspecified schizophrenia spectrum and other psychotic disorder. That diagnosis, it referred to her history of delusional and disorganized thinking, auditory hallucinations, and mood disturbances with insomnia, suicidal thoughts, acts of cutting, and I could not tell whether this was schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder.
And ma'am, is it fair to say that that diagnosis is made based on corroborating evidence that you had evaluated? You had evaluated medical records, you had done your own interview. That was based on corroborating evidence.
That's correct.
And then your other unspecified diagnosis was?
Unspecified cannabis-related disorder.
All right. And how did you come to that conclusion?
That diagnosis was given because there was demonstrated a history of cannabis use in the medical records. It appeared to have been a potential clinical issue for her, but the details of it were not there. It wasn't enough detail in the records to say whether it fit into a cannabis use disorder diagnosis.
But again, based on all the documents you had reviewed, corroboration that would bring you or lead you to that potential diagnosis.
Correct. That was from the records.
And then back on September 3rd, your final was that she was incompetent but restorable.
Correct.
Okay. And so then we're going to move right along to the, I believe it's dated February 1st, which is Defense Exhibit H.
That's correct.
All right. So in Defense Exhibit H, you also provide the same information that you had initially relied upon. All those records, they're all the same. They don't change.
Exactly. Historical information did not change.
And so then, but now it's a little bit different because she has been afforded medications.
Correct.
And now she's at a different level.
Correct.
Of understanding.
Yes.
And cooperating.
Correct, correct.
Now, on page 4 of your report, I believe you had a conversation with Miss Ellis about her own psychiatric history at the very bottom.
Yes.
And what does she tell you during that interview?
She told me that she had been a client of Murtis Taylor, and she said that she was treated at the agency for schizoaffective disorder. She said that she described her illness as manifesting with illogical thinking and mood swings.
All right. And so did she know what Murtis Taylor was?
Yes.
And that she had attended Murtis Taylor?
Yes.
So she's able to tell you where she was seeking her medical care?
Yes.
Or psychiatric care, I should say, to be clear. So let's go on to page 5 here. I believe you and Mr. Mack talked about January of 2015 when she went to, I believe that one was, it's a little confusing here. It says January 2015 through October 2023. The reports.
All right, we're going to slip in a commercial break. We'll have more from Ohio, the cross-examination of the defense expert next.
Good morning. This is Court TV Live. I'm Kelly Craft in today for Ted Rollins. We are in Ohio this morning for the toddler stabbed murder trial. Back in June of last year, Margot Wood and her 3-year-old son Julian had just checked out at a grocery store, and they were headed to their car when they were attacked and stabbed. Prosecutors say this all began when the defendant, Bionca Ellis, became agitated earlier that day after not being able to collect all of her belongings at a police station. She then proceeded to obtain a knife from a thrift store and made her way to the grocery store where the attack took place. The defense does not deny Ellis's actions, but says she has a history of schizophrenia and was off of her medication that day. Let's get you back into the courtroom now. We are getting you caught up on unaired testimony from yesterday, so let's pick it up right where we left off with the defense's first witness, a forensic psychiatrist who evaluated Ellis, now on cross-examination by the state.
I believe you and Mr. Mack talked about January of 2015 when she went to, I believe that one was, it's a little confusing here. It says January 2015 through October 2023. The reports were summarized for you with regards to the emergency department at Lutheran and then Fairview Hospital. And then I would like to talk about in January of 2015, Ms. Ellis's case manager took her to the emergency department at Lutheran Hospital.
That's correct.
All right. So if we just go back to, well, I guess in January of 2015, why did her manager take her to the emergency department?
Her case manager took her to the emergency department because she had not slept for 5 days. She was hearing voices and she was seeing visions. So the case manager brought her in seeking help for her.
Okay. And what happened?
She sneaked out of the ED on that day. She did not end up being evaluated. She was able to elope from that emergency department.
Okay. And then in December of that year, Miss Ellis went back to the Lutheran Emergency Department. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, she was there for treatment of a wound. There's no description of her mental health state at that day. They didn't discuss it.
Okay. On February 2016, did she again go to the Lutheran ED?
Yes.
And why did she go there?
She went there with the physical health complaints. She said she was feeling faint and dizzy. She was taking medications at that time. She was taking an antipsychotic medication, Seroquel, that was noted in the medical record. She was cooperative with care and had a workup for medical issues on that day. She was noted to have normal behavior and was able to be discharged from the emergency room.
Okay. And we go through the whole history from 2015 to 2024.
Yes.
Right? And so you've got inpatient psychiatric treatment and outpatient psychiatric treatment. Is that fair?
That's correct.
All right. So not every time that she went to an emergency department was it for psychiatric issues.
That's correct.
Now, turning to page 7 of your report, ma'am.
Yes.
You review the records from the Cuyahoga County Jail, the medical treatment that she was receiving there.
Yes.
Paragraph number 4, her interactions with Dr. Baskin. And
Yeah.
what were his observations of her?
He described her as initially being limited in her willingness to engage with him. He said that she spoke to him in a curt manner. She conveyed annoyance with him. He described her as bizarre in many of her answers, disjointed, and paranoid. That was on June 6th, 2024. He diagnosed her with schizoaffective disorder. He prescribed Haldol and Cogentin, but she refused to take the medication. He then did a series of follow-up visits. He saw her on June 14th, July 5th, July 26th, and August 21st. He described her as standoffish, guarded, irritable, eccentric, and he continued those prescriptions, but she declined to take them.
And why didn't she take them?
He said that she didn't give a reason, but what his exact words were was she declined to take them without discernible reasons apart from believing she did not require them.
All right. So, Dr. Testa, you had all this corroborating evidence during the first interview of Miss Bionca Ellis, and then the second interview of Bionca Ellis when you deemed her to be competent to stand trial.
That's correct.
All right. Now, Mr. Mack just touched upon it, but let's talk about it a little bit. Because, ma'am, you are a forensic scientist,
Yes.
right?
Yes, ma'am.
Forensic psychiatrist, I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
And being one, you also sometimes have the opportunity to evaluate folks for insanity.
That's correct.
And insanity is a legal definition. Would you agree with me?
That's correct, yes.
All right. And so, ma'am, you started talking with Mr. Mack with regards to what are the method and mode of providing a insanity evaluation? What kinds of things do you look at?
So what you would look at, what your role would be to provide an opinion about the person's mental state at the time of the offense. So a person would do an evaluation and a diagnostic evaluation, but their main focus would not be on the day you're seeing the person. Your main focus would be to review records. You would get a lot of records from police. You would get records from any outside sources. You would review witness reports describing the person's behavior on the day of the offense. And you would review all of that. You would also do a very detailed interview with the defendant themselves. You would ask them a lot of questions about the event. What happened? Why did you do what you did? Were you taking meds at the time? You would get a history of how the preceding days leading up to the crime went. You'd get that history in great detail, and you would learn all of that from the defendant themselves. And you would have to put all that information together and synthesize all that to form an opinion.
And ma'am, is it fair to say that self-reporting is not enough?
Self-reporting is not enough. You would get their self-report. You would need that self-report because only that person knows certain things. But you have to look at a lot of extraneous information as well, contemporaneous information. You would want to look at the witness reports and look at observations from others.
And doctor, when you're assessing, you consider the symptoms of the severe mental disease or defect, correct?
That's correct.
The knowledge of the wrongfulness of the offense?
That's correct.
And then there would be a causal link between the symptoms and any unimpaired knowledge of the wrongfulness of the act.
That's correct.
Or offense.
Yes.
And then the motive for the offense, would that be considered?
We do consider that because that tells us the why, and that tells us if it's related to their mental illness and if they know it's wrong. So that's a key to look at as well, whether it's rational or irrational.
So you'd look at the rational or irrational component.
That's correct, yes.
But you didn't do it in this case.
I did not do any of that.
No. We're just talking in generalities of what a forensic scientist does.
Correct.
All right. And so you can be psychotic, yet still know the wrongfulness of your actions.
Of course.
But you can also be psychotic and not know the wrongfulness of your actions.
Absolutely.
All right. Doctor, does mental illness equate with legal insanity?
No, well, yeah, we could. Yeah.
Let's go ahead and bring in our guest for this hour to discuss. From Martinez, California, criminal defense attorney Alan Kagawa. Alan, nice to see you on this Friday. Alan, listening to this doctor on the stand, she is neutral, a neutral party in a way. She was appointed by the court to take a look at the defendant here and provide some information. What do you think of the cross-examination so far? Defense obviously has said they initially just said not guilty, then they eventually changed their strategy here and said not guilty by reason of insanity. What are you taking away from the cross by the prosecutor?
I'd say the cross by the prosecutor is, as of right now, I think things are leaning quite in favor of not guilty by reason of insanity. The cross-examination really covered, Ms. Ellis's history of schizophrenia, history of hallucinations, history of psychosis, and in particular, that last line of questioning, can someone be psychotic but still know, distinguish right from wrong? I believe that is rather a weak leg to stand on when ultimately trying to find that someone is guilty of this.
Yeah, we'll have to see what else they come up with. One thing that I'm kind of thinking about in this case when we take a look at it, the one surveillance part, the surveillance video, When she is hitting the knife against that concrete column to check, according to the prosecutor, the viability of that knife, from my perspective, it appears that maybe in that moment she is able to understand what she's doing. She wants to know if the knife is working enough to do something with it, and then drops the one that clearly isn't as strong as the other one. And I just wonder what the takeaway could be from that, how the prosecutor will argue that in her closing, because if I was prosecuting this case, I would take that particular incident and talk about it.
Absolutely. I think you touched upon one of the strongest arguments for the prosecution, which is, you know, it seems like she's understanding things. She's not in full psychosis. She's aware of potentially, you know, just how this knife is working. I'd say definitely that goes to potentially her understanding of, you know, what she's up to. I'd say I know the defense is going to try to focus on, you know, some other explanation, but I think that's definitely the strongest argument for the prosecution, or at least one of them.
Yeah, one of them, definitely Alan. All right, that sidebar that was going on in court, that's over. Let's get back in now for the redirect.
Dr. Psychosis, insanity, same thing?
I'm hesitant because it was objected to before. Go ahead with it. Psychosis is a medical term.
Thank you.
And insanity is a legally defined term.
Okay. You recall that Ms. Faralia had you go, I believe it was page 6 of Defense's Exhibit I, your September 2024 report.
Yes.
There was some mention of the May 26th, 24th interaction with one of the doctors regarding normal eye contact. You recall that? Did you learn that 3 days later, May 29th of 24, that Ms. Ellis was jailed in North Olmsted?
Yes.
Okay. And would it surprise you to know that a corrections officer identified her appearance and mental health status as the question was, is the inmate's conduct, appearance, and mental health status normal? And the answer was no. Would that surprise you?
It doesn't surprise me.
Okay. Again, just make sure the jurors have it. Why is it such a high rate of noncompliance with medication for this population?
Individuals with schizophrenia often have what's called a lack of insight into their illness. So the symptoms that individuals feel and perceive feel very real. They often don't agree with their diagnosis, and so they will make a choice not to take medications because they don't believe they have the illness. So just like if you or I, if someone told me to take medications for diabetes and I did not have diabetes, I would decline that medication. Is it a voluntary decline? Of course, but if my mind's not in reality, I can voluntarily decline. It's really not a good choice. I wouldn't have had the capacity to truly consider that and make a good decision for myself.
Do you have any reason to believe that Ms. Ellis was not a mentally ill schizophrenic prior to June 3rd of 2024?
No, the records disprove that. She was ill for years before.
Okay. Is there any reason to believe that she was not ill during the month of June of 2024?
No, I would not believe that. She was not taking medications, and there would be no reason to believe that she was not ill.
Okay. Judge, may I take one moment, please?
Sure.
All right, well, that concludes that testimony from the doctor on the stand. And again, this took place yesterday. The court for today has already started back up. But due to that court order, we are unable to air today's testimony until the end of the day. So in the meantime, we are going to switch gears and head to Florida, where a woman is on trial for fatally shooting her boyfriend in the leg. Testimony in the toxic relationship murder trial is coming up next. Stay with us. You're watching Court TV.
premeditated, and then he focused on that reprehensible aggravated factor of killing.